Look at us! Standing next to you is a husband, a wife, a sister, a brother, grandmother, grandfather. Standing next to you is a survivor. You survived the certain death of combustible cigarettes. You traveled from all over the country. You drove, you flew, you came by bus, by train, you carpooled. We came here with one singular message. We will support those that support flavors and a faster pathway to market for open systems. But if you remove products, remove our flavors from market, we will remove you from office in 2020! Look at us! We vape! We vote! 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 We vape!
What's up, Insiders? Deucesjack at VapingInsider.com. I got Greg Connolly here from the American Vapers Association. Greg, take it away. Tell us what you think about this rally so far.
So this is an awesome day. 2 months ago, on September 11th, when President Trump announced his intent to allow HHS Secretary Alex Azar to ban the sale of all flavored nicotine vaping products, some consumers and small business owners decided enough was enough. We need to do a real legitimate rally in DC to make our voices heard. There's always a worry when you do a national event like this. Will the weather be bad? Will people just not turn out? Well, people turned out here today, and it is awesome.
Big time. Now, let me ask you a question. You brought up Secretary Azar, okay? He was a ex-Eli Lilly big pharma lobbyist. Is that his problem with vaping? Like, what? The guy seems to have like a hard-on for vaping.
It is not just conflicts of interest and past jobs that cause people to not like this industry. If you run a regulatory agency, you want to regulate as few products as possible.
Right.
With the budget that the FDA Center for Tobacco Products has, at least with the way the federal government works with their budgets, they simply do not believe they have the capacity to regulate 3 million plus nicotine vaping products. And we've always said, it's one thing if the FDA released attainable standards that ended up with a large share of manufacturers having to exit just because there's some cost involved. But a multi-million-dollar cost, all it does is just hand the industry over to large tobacco companies and maybe one or two Wall Street-backed firms. But Secretary Azar ultimately just wants this problem nipped in the bud, but we're not going to let that happen, at least not without our voices being heard.
Now, you also brought up the FDA, right? We have a new FDA commissioner pending, right? Does he have to get approval, I believe, right?
Yes, Stephen Hahn will need to be approved by Congress.
And what do you think about him? Is there any early indications that he might be different than Sharpless, or is it going to be the same thing with a different face?
Ned Sharpless, while a nice person by all accounts, was largely an empty suit. He was a friend, he was a temporary acting FDA commissioner, so he was pretty much somebody to do what HHS Secretary Azar wanted him to do. Stephen Hahn, he's probably not going to be a revolutionary by any means. He's no libertarian, but we will see if the Trump administration signals that before November 2020 and hopefully past November 2020, they do not want to see 10,000 plus small businesses closed. Hopefully, Stephen Hahn will listen to his voice and not shut down and create a whole army of anti-Trump voters in 2020.
Now, you brought up President Trump, okay? What did you think about his latest comments that, I believe he said, you know, there are some good things, we're just looking to protect the kids, right? What, do you think he softened his stance a little bit? You think we're getting through to him, Greg?
So approximately 2 weeks ago, the Washington Post reported that Brad Parscale, President Trump's campaign manager for his re-election, he went to the Trump administration with polling showing that banning flavors actually doesn't help with votes with suburban moms, but in fact it will harm his chances of being reelected by completely turning away a whole lot of adults from his campaign. So he listens to votes, he listens to people, he also listens to people that have been on his side. Groups like Americans for Tax Reform and other conservative right-leaning groups, they've been very important to this fight. On the White House lawn yesterday, President Trump indicated that we're looking at raising the age to 21 or so, and we are also looking at flavors, but he did mention that we need to save jobs. That is a good sign. We're cautiously optimistic at this point.
Now, let me ask you another question about President Trump, because while I am happy with that statement, it did give me some hope. What bothers me is that we seem to be having a hard time getting a seat at the national table. Didn't they cancel all the OMB meetings, right? Like, what? Why do you think that is?
The White House 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, however long ago that was when they canceled the meeting, it feels like months by now, they were unsure about what they were doing, and they didn't want to, I believe, appear to be beholden to the industry if they took a positive step that we would later be happy with. So it is very difficult for small businesses in all fields to get a seat at the table, but groups like VTA and SFATA are both fighting, both having meetings with senators, with Congress members, talking to people at the White House, as well as our center-right groups that are friends like Americans for Tax Reform.
Can I ask you another question? What do you think is more of the fight we have to worry about? Do we have to worry about more of a state level fight, or are we worrying more about a national level fight? And, you know, do you think it's hard that we might be fighting on two fronts like that?
We've been fighting on multiple fronts for years. This is the new normal, unfortunately. The reality is that if the Trump administration takes an action to ban the sale of nicotine vaping products, people will find workarounds, but ultimately the industry changes in a huge way, and state battles in both Democrat and Republican states become a whole lot harder. So we are hopeful that once we have some more understanding, better, at least temporary, better position in a couple days, cross your fingers, vapors, that we will be able to work the state issues and be okay in 2020. But that's not to say 2020 is going to be easy. 2020 is going to be our hardest year yet to survive.
Now, we just had an election in Kentucky, right, for governor, and Matt Bevin, it looks like he lost. I don't think he's conceded yet, but it looks like he lost by about 4,000 votes, right? And I read somewhere that there were approximately 90,000 vapors in Kentucky. And my contention is, if he would have just came out for adult nicotine vaping, I think he would have mobilized those 90,000 to vote for him, and I think he lost because he didn't come out.
So I think there's more than 90,000 adult vapors in Kentucky.
Okay.
But the reality is that had Governor Bevin come out and said no flavor bans a month, 2 months before the election, that would have gotten to the vapor voters. Unfortunately, he did not come out and say we probably shouldn't be banning stuff until about a week before the election, and a lot of people had already voted at that point. So Governor Bevin was deeply unpopular. If he had embraced the vapor vote, and had he perhaps been a little less unpopular, he could have been reelected.
I believe so too. So where do you see us 3-6 months from now? Do you think we have some light at the end of the tunnel?
We are going to be in state fights all over the place in 2020, and even if we solve the President Trump issue that we're currently facing with flavors, we still have May 2020 as the PMTA date. We need to fix that. We need to get delays, enforcement discretion, anything to stop the Trump administration 5-6 months before an election from shutting down 10,000 plus small businesses.
And what do you think about this rally, man? I mean, isn't it beautiful to see all these people here?
It is awesome. I never thought that I would be speaking at an event like this. I never thought I'd be speaking in front of a crowd of this size. So thank you all, to all of you out there that turned out, and to those of you who couldn't make it, but you're out there watching this video, watching the live streams on Facebook, thank you as well.
I got Tony Abood here. We're at the rally in Washington, D.C. Tony is the executive director of Vapor Technology, right?
Yeah, the Vapor Technology Association.
Okay, Vapor Technology Association. Tony, tell us a little bit about how you feel about this rally, how you feel what's going on. How does it feel to see thousands of vapors here?
It really warms my heart. This is a fantastic day. Right. Only 2 months ago, when we had our Hill Day, we had 200 small business owners come to Capitol Hill, and our team set them up with meetings with all of their legislators all over the Hill, and I was moved on that day. Today, it's beyond words. We have thousands of people here saying we are not going to allow our government to take flavors away from us because this product is too important to us. It's too important to all those people who have been trying to quit smoking, and we are in this fight, and that's what Vapor Technology has been fighting for the last 3 years. We have armed up for this day.
Now, you're talking about the fight, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. What really, really bothers me is that it doesn't seem like the national politicians want to give us a seat at the table. They canceled all the meetings, right? The OMB meetings,
Yep.
right? What's going on with that, man?
Look,
Talk to me.
this is a tense issue right now, and one of the reasons it's so tense is because of the work that we have been doing. We have been pushing hard on the administration, and they are getting pushed hard from the other side by the people that want to shut down this industry. But we're making it very clear to them that this industry is a real industry. We've got almost 14,000 small mom and pop shops around the country selling flavored vapor products. You take flavors out of the marketplace,
They're all out of business.
They're all out of business.
They're all out of business.
And we did the study for it, and we gave the study to the administration. That's 166,000 jobs at risk. And most recently, we went up on TV because we said, look, we have to take this message directly to the president.
So you're the one behind all those political ads.
That is correct.
Fantastic.
We actually run up on TV. We run 2 ads on TV,
Outstanding.
letting the administration know that banning flavors is bad for the economy, but also bad for public health. And also, it's not going to be good because vapors are single-issue voters. We also are the ones that commissioned that poll that came out, and we found that at least 65% of the people that responded who are adult vapor voters said they are less likely, much less likely to vote for this administration again if a flavor ban goes in place.
Now, what can individuals do with the individual states? Like, let me give you an example. I live in New York, right?
Yes.
We have Governor Cuomo. I call him El Duce. All right. He wanted to wipe out all vape shops with the stroke of a pen.
He did.
And thank God the court stopped him. Okay,
Well,
but
yeah.
what can we do on a state level too? Because I don't think we just got to worry about federal.
Yeah.
I think we all got to worry about our individual states as well.
You are 100% correct, and that's what VTA has also been doing. We lobbied in 43 states last year.
Right.
We set up the industry's first coordinated state lobbying program to keep those flavor bans from happening in New York. And I will tell you this, when the governor came out with his ban, we're the association that went into court, sued them, and got that temporary restraining order in place. So New York is still selling vapor products today because of the lawsuit that we filed.
Wow. So yeah, it's New York is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we got Fernando Cabrera. He's running for AOC seat. He's an ardent anti-vapor.
Yes.
All right. We have Mark Levine, another ardent anti-vapor. I was at a protest in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just getting crazy. So we're fighting basically two fronts. We're fighting a state and a national front.
Absolutely.
Is that correct? Right?
Absolutely, yeah. And we said, then when we set up the VTA, we knew this was going to happen. That's why we said from the very beginning, we got to fight on the federal level, but we have to be organized into fighting at the state level. And that's why when we set this program up last year, I mean, to have a coordinated campaign in 43 states made a huge difference because there were 0 flavor ban bills that got passed last year. And that's because we had an orchestrated and coordinated effort that was pushing back against all those people who are trying to shut your businesses down.
Now, since you're politically active, I don't know, what state are you from? Are you from Illinois?
I am actually originally from Illinois, yep.
Okay. Now, Matt Bevin, right, in Kentucky, I believe,
Yep.
right, just lost the governorship.
That's right.
And he lost the governorship to an anti-vapor.
Yeah.
And I believe, and tell me if I'm wrong, I believe he could have easily won had he just came out and supported adult nicotine vaping.
Yeah, it's hard to say because, I mean, each state is going to be different, but the polling data that we have today clearly demonstrates that vapors are one-issue voters and that so many of them, like upwards of 80-90% of them, are much more likely to vote for a candidate if they're supportive of flavors
Right.
and of the industry than if they are against it.
Because I think he lost like by 4,000 or 5,000 votes, right? And which is not a lot on a state level. That's
Sometimes
that's
that's
not a
all
lot.
it takes.
That's all it takes.
Right.
But I also read somewhere that there are over 87,000 vapors in Kentucky.
Yes.
And I think he could have very easily mobilized those 87,000
Yeah.
if he just would have come out and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm for your right to vape."
Well, one of the problems is that the media took off with this story about vapor products being
Right.
dangerous, and once that took hold, that changed a lot of people's thinking. That's why this has become so much more urgent today, that we get the message out, that we're fighting back and pushing every button that we can push. And I tell you, politicians do get nervous.
Right.
There's no question about it. They're like everybody else.
The only thing that gets them nervous is when you threaten their power structure.
That is true.
You
Yep.
know, let's go over the issue though, the conflation of the issue that we've seen by the media and the politicians. Now, I think we have two issues that we're worried about here, right?
Okay.
Number one is illegal THC cartridges are the ones that are causing the sickness, not
Correct.
adult nicotine vaping. That's
That
correct,
is
right?
correct, yeah.
And then the other thing that we're fighting on is the so-called youth epidemic of vaping, right? Because they're trying to say that vaping is the same thing as vaping in illegal THC cartridges, and guys like you and I know that's not true.
That's right. And what's really dangerous about that is that, especially early on, when people were still using these black market THC products, they weren't being warned. The
Right.
government was not properly warning them. And we said, make sure you are very clear so that people know what they should stay away from. And for over a month and a half, they kept saying e-cigarettes, and
Right.
saying it's
And
nicotine
vaping,
products.
vaping.
Right.
It's not- yeah.
And that is, a real concern. And now they're finally starting to clarify their positions. And as a result of that, hopefully, then the media will understand where the real problem is and has been. And that message will get out even better.
Now let's talk about the teen epidemic,
Yeah.
okay? Now, it's always been my position that if vaping is a gateway to smoking, like they say,
Yeah.
right, and teens are vaping, by a huge percentage, why isn't teen smoking going up?
All right, that's you hit the nail right on the head.
Right?
It's extremely hard to make the argument that smoking is increasing because of vaping when smoking continues to decrease.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that all the primary concerns that they are raising is what might happen in the future. And today, there is still no evidence of any sort of gateway. And really, the evidence is that even kids that used to smoke are no longer smoking. So we have to. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think there is a gateway. I think smoking is a gateway to vaping.
Yeah, well, we can only hope, right?
That's the way I feel about
as
it.
long as
Because
we
everybody here is ex-smokers.
That's right. And as long as we can keep the product available, then smokers will have those options because, frankly, they don't have a lot of options.
Right.
The other products on the market just don't work. The smoking cessation products fail more than 90% of the time. That is not a success rate. That is an abject failure rate. And this is the first product, I bet you, if you polled every one of the people in this crowd, it's the first product that's really helped them and made them able to get off cigarettes. And that's our goal. We want them to quit and stay quit.
That's the ultimate goal. Absolutely.
And flavors play such an important role.
Absolutely.
And that's why at VTA we made defending flavors one of the number one priorities for our organization. And
I
we are
quit
going
with vanilla
all
custard.
in. There you go.
I quit with vanilla custard.
Yeah.
I tried the tobacco, and the tobaccos just don't taste like a cigarette.
Yeah.
They don't.
No.
And I wanted something that got me away from that cigarette flavor anyway. I didn't want to be associated with tobacco.
Anybody who's quit smoking knows that that's the last place they want to be,
Right.
is tasting a cigarette, smelling a cigarette,
Right.
being anywhere close to a cigarette.
Right.
When I quit, I could smell a cigarette 3 blocks away,
Exactly.
and it turned my stomach. So, it's common sense. But sometimes we got to go through some really hard times to get common sense to prevail, but I think we're starting to break through. And I'm really excited about that.
Tony, I want to thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for spending some time with me. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Okay, and thanks again for all the work you do.
I appreciate it. And one last thing is, you said what can people do? People watching can still go to vapersdovote.com.
Excellent.
Vapersdovote.com. Let the president know if you quit, how you quit, and what you used to quit, and then send a message to the White House. It is so important. We keep our voices up, we keep them loud, and we keep them consistent because they are making some decisions here in the coming days, and we want them to know where you stand.
I got my fellow motorcyclist here. I got Mike Hogan from SFATA. Mike, what do you think about this rally, man? Look at all these glorious vapors.
I think it's awesome. It exceeds my expectations. And when the president flew over us in that helicopter, it's a thing to behold. It's beautiful.
I actually wonder if that was his actual route, or if he told the pilot, hey, fly over there and let me see how many people, because I could picture him saying that.
Yeah, I can too.
You know what I
They
mean?
pretty much always go that way.
Do they always go that way? Okay, you would know better
Andrews
than
Air
me.
Force Base, yeah.
Now let me ask you a question. On a national level, why does it seem like we're having such a hard time getting to the table?
We've had almost $1 billion spent against us by the public health lobby, the CDC, Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. Michael Bloomberg spent $160 million. So over the last 3 years, $1 billion ad campaign against us. And all the local networks bought it, the vaping illness, all of this. It's been coordinated to put a nail in our coffin. We're killing smoking, and they're trying to kill us.
So you think it's bottom line all about the money? It's all about the MSA money?
No, I think it is, but I think it's powered by misunderstanding and fear, right? The thing that politicians, and I'm the lobbyist for SFATA, so what politicians worry about is what is the suburban mother feeling, right? And she's afraid. She finds her kid vaping and doesn't think, thank God they're not smoking. They think, oh my God, we got to stop this vaping thing. And so it's fear. It's a campaign of fear. It mobilizes voters and politicians. It's popular for them to be against us. We're the new bad guy.
Now let me ask you a question as a national vape advocate. The CDC really slow walked their findings, right? And I feel like the CDC slow walked them on purpose, and I also feel like the media was complicit in reporting that because I don't think they did their homework. I don't think journalism is what it was as little as 10 years ago. I don't think they do the research. I don't think they do the deep dive.
You're absolutely right.
It's almost like the CDC releases a press release and the media just runs with it like it's gospel, and that's kind of disheartening, man, isn't it?
Yeah, and the CDC's been active against vaping for years, so they intentionally slow walked it. To me, it's public health malpractice. It's
a form of corruption.
If it was contaminated spinach, we'd know what farm it came from.
Really, bro?
If it was contaminated spinach, we'd know what farm it came from yesterday.
Right.
And they walked it. It started in June, and now it's November. And yesterday they came out saying, "Okay, it looks like it was all THC, marijuana, illegal cartridges." Yesterday. So yeah, 4 months of people not being warned not to use the THC products, and people being scared away from vaping, and they're still smoking. I know store owners' sales have gone down, cut in half since September 11th when the president announced it.
4 months of the CDC saying, stop vaping, don't vape, whatever you do, don't vape.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. I mean, these unelected government officials are now setting policy, and it's as an American, it's very disturbing. I'm sorry, it really is.
And what they're doing is they've stopped people from quitting smoking. And smoking kills 10 times more people than opioids every day.
And it's not banned. Dude, really?
So,
and go ahead, smoking kills
10 times more people than opioids every single day. And,
unbelievable, man. And yet it's so
and we're
legal.
killing smoking. They should just say thank you.
But they won't. They won't. It's kind of sad.
So,
it really
but the
is.
problem with the ban that they're proposing is it's going to create a black market. Harvard University and Politico came out with a poll in August that said there were 25 million Americans who vape. 25 million people are going to turn to the black market when they ban flavors. And then you're going to have people having contaminated, low-quality, unregulated liquids and devices. And so,
which is basically the same thing that got everybody sick, buying low-quality,
Exactly.
unregulated devices from drug dealers with
yeah.
THC in it. That's what got everybody sick to begin with.
Yeah.
So basically, they're going to push people back to that side of the market, or to smoking, one or the other.
Prohibition has never worked. It won't work this time, and they're just going to make it worse.
Now, do you think Trump has lightened his stance?
There's a war going on inside that house. There are two sides. There's the side that says, prohibition never works and we have to do harm reduction and help these people quit smoking. And there's the other side that are saying abstinence only. You got to be pure. People should just quit. That's not reality.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? I'm from New York, right? And in New York, there's a ton of meth clinics, safe injection sites, right?
Yep.
And it's funny, when it comes to heroin, they believe in harm reduction. But when it comes to nicotine, nobody believes in harm reduction?
In their defense, they did everything else first, right? They tried to ban, the law enforcement approach,
right,
the penalties, the blame the victim, and now they're coming around to that. Winston Churchill said, Americans can always be trusted to do the right thing after they've tried everything else, and that's what they're doing.
Interesting. I never heard that quote
It's
before.
true,
That's
though,
very
isn't it?
interesting.
That's
wow.
what they're doing here.
Wow. Now, I'll tell you though, man, it's incredible to me how they're so tone deaf when it comes to vapors. I've just never seen such obtuseness from a government. before.
It's fear. They're just afraid of something new and different. They don't know what it is. In England, they sell vapor products in the health aisle in the drugstores.
Now, what about the youth vaping epidemic thing, right? Like everybody's saying that, oh, the kids are vaping, but how come child smoking levels or kid smoking levels are going down every year? If vaping is a gateway to smoking, shouldn't that number be going up?
Yeah, absolutely. Last year, youth vaping fell 28%, the largest decline ever, to historically low levels. We're below the goals that were set for 2020 by double. So, yeah, youth smoking is going away, and vaping is the reason. I'm not saying youth should never use
Absolutely.
vapor products, but it's working, and
I mean, I kind of feel
go back up.
Like I'm a parent of an 11 and a 14-year-old. I got 2 boys. And, I have a YouTube studio with all my stuff laid out and everything. They see all my vape stuff, okay?
Yes.
They don't vape. My 14-year-old doesn't vape, and I'm involved in his life, and I'm an active parent. And I kind of feel like this whole vaping epidemic with the teens, I believe it's an enforcement issue, and I believe it's a parenting issue. I mean, these parents need to get off of Facebook and Twitter and start getting involved in your child's life and know what's going on. I mean...
Yeah, I agree. And we proposed to the Congress that there be actual penalties for youth nicotine use, and just like there is for alcohol or other substances. And you know who's opposed to that? The Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids and the American Lung Association and the American Academy of Pediatrics. They're opposed to it because if they blame the parents, then they can't blame us.
Yeah.
They can't blame the shop owners. I stole my father's cigarettes when I was 14.
That's how
we
all
didn't
started.
go after Marlboro and blame them. It was my fault. Yeah. My father beat the tar out of me and I stopped.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and while we started smoking we used to snag a cigarette here and there. We used to buy Lucy's at the corner, right? We used to, if my parents caught me smoking, they didn't run down to the deli and blame the guy for selling me cigarettes. They kicked my butt for doing it. Yeah, and that's why I just think it's a parenting issue. I really do. It's a parenting issue more than anything.
It's easier to blame someone, though,
yeah,
isn't it?
it is, than admitting that you might not be the best parent in the world. Yeah, I agree.
It's hard. Yeah.
I agree, man. Well, I got my man Andy here from the New York State Vapers Association. You've seen him on the channel before. Andy, what do you think about this, man?
It's great, dude. This is like possibly the most vapors I've ever seen in one place, and I've been to a lot of shows, I mean, this is serious. When I came across the pitch here, I had a little tear in my eye. Like, I couldn't believe that we actually were able to put this together, and I think that this is really a sign of how much of a force vapors have become.
Let's talk about that for a second, okay? Because I'm a little older than most of the people here, probably, all right? I'm in my 50s. I got no problem saying that. I grew up in the 70s and 80s. And I remember in the 80s, when they went after smoking, they basically made smokers second-class citizens and dehumanized them. And I kind of feel like they're trying to do the same thing to us right now, but we're not letting it happen. Do you get that feeling?
Yeah, and I think, honestly, that's a critical mistake. Not that they're making, but that they've made. They have taken the assumption that vapors are simply former smokers, and you're absolutely right. Smokers are people that don't care about themselves, because if they did, they wouldn't kill themselves on purpose just for a little bit of pleasure. Let's get real. But
Absolutely.
The fact is, vapors are people, vapors are smokers that cared so much about themselves and their family and their loved ones that they made a really hard choice, and they worked hard towards a solution to the problem that they had. And now our government looked at vapors just like former smokers. Oh, these guys are going to lay down.
Yeah.
We took their rights away 20 years ago and no one stopped us, and we're going to take their rights away again. And when I look behind me, I got a lot of people that are saying, you want to take my rights?
Hell no.
I'm not going willingly.
Absolutely.
I'm not going back to smoking.
Absolutely.
You're not going back to smoking. I know most of the people in this crowd would rather buy e-liquid out of a trusted trunk than go back to smoking deadly cigarettes. And that's what this whole rally is about.
They made a huge miscalculation with that. I agree with you. Now, God forbid a flavor ban does come down. They're just going to create a black market because none of these people are going to stop vaping. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And I think that not only did they underestimate the average consumer's will to stand up for their rights and for a product that they need and they want, but they underestimated the ability of this industry to come together.
Yeah.
And this right here is proof. Years ago, me and CJ sat there and we preached to the industry. We're in this together, win or lose. And this behind me, this looks like a winning effort to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, does it upset you? Are you bothered by the fact that it's been kind of tough for us to get a seat at the national level, a seat at the table? It looks like all the OMBs were canceled, right? Nobody's meeting with us. It seems like they're only meeting with the the jewels of the world and not the real. I hate to say that because they are real vapors, but not the vapors that are here. You don't really have a lot of jewel users here. You got guys like us that vape on full-fledged systems. It doesn't seem like we're represented on a national level. Is that bothering you?
Well, I think, that seat at the table is a very, it's a very real thing. And we talk about that a lot at all levels of government.
Right.
But the seat is much harder to pull out from these federal tables down here in Washington, D.C. You know what I mean? We've been working for years in New York and in a lot of the other states, and at the lower levels, they're a little more willing. Sometimes they'll pull the seat out for you. Sometimes they'll give you the opportunity, have a seat, take a seat,
Right.
But I think this right here, what this is about showing our federal government, if you are not going to pull that seat out for us, if you're not going to welcome us to the table, then we got a lot of people, we have a lot of force. And if we have to, we will drop kick the chair out from under the table, we will flip the goddamn table, and we will ask you, now that there's no table in between us, can we have a discussion, sir?
That's the right way to do it.
That's what this is all about.
And I think this is going to go a long way in getting us that seat at the table.
And what we're calling for right now is sensible regulations.
Right.
It's simple. But what we're calling for is unity in the industry. Unity on all levels. And if we don't get those sensible regulations, then we're going to call for some other things. I've heard some people up here on the stage calling for civil disobedience.
Right.
If they think you're going to close your store, don't close your store. Make them come and put the locks on the door themselves. And you know what? The lawsuit will be a lot easier to win if they actually do it.
That's right, and get some TV crews down there showing them putting the locks on the door, because regular Americans are not going to want to see that type of enforcement. Those type of Gestapo tactics just don't play well with the American public.
Exactly, and what we're doing right now, it's a simple system. Work with us.
Right.
If you won't work with us, then we are going to work against you. We will make sure that you don't have a job anymore, and as soon as the next guy's moving in, we'll be sitting there saying, hey buddy, the last guy didn't want to work with us. Do you?
That's exactly right.
Because if not, we can call someone, we can get this office rearranged, and we'll move the next guy in 2 years.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean?
Now let me ask you a question. President Trump recently made a little bit of a statement where it looks like he softened a bit on his vaping stance. How did you interpret that? I'm sure you heard it.
Well, I think that the president of our country right now is very unclear in just about every ounce of communication that he gives to the American people. And so I have taken every single word he's said about vaping with a grain of salt. Until he makes a definitive decision, I don't believe anything. But I have a lot of optimism after hearing him for the first time use his favorite four-letter word, J-O-B-S.
Yeah.
Jobs, jobs, jobs.
Yeah.
He loves making jobs. He loves talking about jobs. He loves telling everyone how Obama killed everyone's jobs. That man, jobs is his favorite four-letter word. And to hear him say that about our industry, I think he might be on the right side of things.
That makes sense. That does make sense. And that's the first time I've heard it interpreted like that. I just saw it as, I was like, wow, because I was watching it live when it happened, and I was like, wow, did he just say that? Like, I was surprised that he actually got on there and said it. And I think there's kind of an internal war going on in the White House. I think he's got a faction of his advisors that are just saying, listen, these people shouldn't be putting anything in their lungs. This is the way they got to live, and that's it. And then I think there are other people going, no, this is harm reduction, and you need to take this seriously. I think that's what's going on in the White House management right now.
Well, I honestly think it's possible someone in his campaign that's very high up came to him in the last few days and said, sir, do you want me to help you win this election? Or should I look for a new job?
Pascal
because if
probably
you
said
go
that.
forward with this, you're signing a moratorium on your presidency and you're done next year. And I think he's seriously reconsidering what would have been a huge mistake for the future of his political career.
Awesome, man. Well, Andy, I want to thank you for everything that you do, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And we're out of here. Deuces.